And so the men's cycle, it's actually very easy because it's just from the morning to the evening.
73% of women will experience digestive issues before their period. It's a very, very common thing. The two biggest drivers that I want to talk about is estrogen and progesterone.
Bonjour tout le monde, moi c'est Dalila et this is the routine. Aujourd'hui, on va parler de cycle menstruel, hormones et santé féminine avec une invitée qui est spécialisée sur ce sujet, Dinara Muk. Et elle a aussi fait un TED Talk, imaginez-vous. Je vous informe juste que l'épisode, ça sera en anglais, donc si vous avez besoin, n'oubliez pas d'activer les sous-titres. Et welcome to Dinara.
Merci beaucoup. I hope it's all right that we're doing it in English. But the reason I've asked you to do that is because hormone can be so complicated. So I was just hoping that hopefully by doing that and maybe subtitles would do better role than I would in French. But I'm excited.
It's totally fine. I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for accepting this.
So excited to be here.
And can you please, just to start, to introduce yourself?
Definitely. Hi, everybody. My name is Dinara. I think you've done a great job as sort of opening it. So as you mentioned, I specialize in helping women understand their body and really make sense of what's going on within our bodies. And I think for females, one of the best things to do so is to understand our menstrual cycle. So I am a hormone and menstrual cycle coach. I am an educator, and I also speak with different companies and corporations on the topic of women's health, because I believe that when we understand our bodies better, we're able to understand how to function better in those roles and feel better and be better in general.
Thank you so much. This is amazing, and I'm very happy that we're doing this. It was so long that I wanted to do an episode like this.
Yeah.
First question is, can you please explain the difference between the men's cycle and the woman's cycle?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question, because we can only really understand things in comparison once we sort of understand one way across the other. And what I'll start with is that for a very long time, since the medicine was invented about 450 years ago now, really the only body that we used to focus on and use as the baseline is the men's body. And the men's body, the reason being is because for a very long time, men's body was very easy to study. And for a simple reason, men have hormones, female have hormones. Men's hormones, in particularly our sex hormones, fluctuate on a 24-hour basis. So as the sun comes up, typically men wake up, they have the most amount of the bigger driver hormone for them is testosterone, which is something that we'll talk about, I think, in more detail. So testosterone is the male hormone. So when men wake up, typically around in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, they usually wake up with oftentimes with a very ready energy to go. And usually the things that we hear is it's great to get up in the morning and start your day with a really hard workout. As we go sort of throughout the day, by about midday, men's testosterone levels, they sort of level out. This is time around midday till 2 o'clock. This is when their energy is at most, they're able to communicate the best, they're able to express their ideas. As we sort of go towards the evening, 5, 7, 8, their testosterone levels go down, and at night they sort of go down, and in the morning they replenish the levels again, and off they go again, which is oftentimes the sort of advice when we hear on nutrition, on movement, is get up in the morning, go really hard, sleep at night, and then go and do it all over again the following day. When it comes to food, we often hear do keto, make sure that if you want to get lean, you cut the carbs, you just go hard, and then you get your macros, and then you do it the next day over again. Well, this story changes completely once we enter the female body, because while men's body runs on the 24 hours, the female body actually runs more on a 28-day difference. So actually for female, giving an advice of getting up in the morning, go out really hard, and then go do the same food over and over again, that's the sort of thing that we've been adopting for a very long time. And that is the reason that women's bodies, women historically, we experience more hormonal imbalances, we experience more fatigue, we are more likely to burn out, we're more likely to have chronic conditions that develop earlier, is because for a very long time the female body has been following male advice. And the difference is, to answer your question, what's the difference? We run on a completely different timeline. Our timeline, when we think about a sun and a moon, I think that's a good description. Men's body runs on the sun clock. It goes around the earth 24/7 done. Female body goes on the moon cycle. So it goes in the 28 days. So trying to fit a sun into a moon just doesn't quite make a difference, which is the reason that I think we're having this conversation, and I'm so passionate about bringing this forward, because following the old advice just simply doesn't work for us. If we want to thrive, if we want to succeed in raising families, growing careers, recording podcasts, whatever that might be, we have to understand our body, and it'll help us both physiologically, psychologically, and just in general in how we lead our lives.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. But
Yeah.
just to make it a little bit more simple, and so the men's cycle, it's actually very easy because it's just from the morning to the evening to the night when they go to bed.
24-hour clock.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for the women, it's like 28 days. And in these
Yeah.
28 days, we have different phases. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Can you explain more about these phases?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite the easy way to wrap your head around is when we think about the female body, I like to think about it as the seasons. And this is something that I talk in my TED Talk about. As women, we, on a monthly basis, we go through our internal winter, through our internal spring, through our summer, as we enter fall or autumn, depending which country you're in, as in referring differently to fall and autumn. But we go through these 4 seasons. And when we think about it, the winter time, typically in order to understand the female body, we can look into nature. And once we look into thinking about winter is not really the season to go out and accomplish things and go to things. Typically in the winter, we tend to retreat. We need to slow down a little bit. And winter actually corresponds with our period. So once we get our menstrual cycle, when we think about it from energetic, physiological standpoint, this is when we want to take a breather. This is when we want to really connect with ourselves. This is when we want to really give our body the time to do the crazy thing that's going through it right now. Quite literally, our uterine lining is shedding. There is a lot of processes that's going on. We typically have lower energy, so it's a good time to pull back. Once our period ends, and probably many listeners will resonate with this, the energy goes up. We're like, whoa, I'm ready. Let's go for a workout. Oftentimes, this is the time when we're like, I have so much energy. This is when I'm going to start new diet, new projects. It's springtime. It's like spring cleaning. We're starting new things. Then we go into our ovulation or into our inner summer. This is the time when, as women, we typically want to be seen. I also notice this is the time when my lipstick gets redder, my dresses get shorter. Like I want to be seen, I want to be out there, I want to look good, and I want to have a lot of people around me. This is sort of our inner summer during ovulation. For women, that also corresponds with our fertility cycle. This is typically the only sort of the window of time where women can get pregnant, and physiologically it makes so much sense. And after we've ovulated, once again, our body goes through change. We enter our inner fall. So we're going to the time from extreme amount of energy to sort of like, okay, now it's time to bundle up, maybe get more blankets, maybe calm down a little bit. And after that comes, once this physiological process happens in our body, then we go back into our winter, which is again our period. And so all of these seasons of winter, spring, summer, fall, they really accompany with these driving hormones that go up and down, that regulate and directly affect how we feel, how we look, because our physical appearance actually changes, how much energy we have to exercise, how much fast our body recovers, how much our metabolism works, how quickly we burn fat. Quite literally everything that we do is managed by these hormones, which is why I believe that our hormones, quite literally, we are our hormones. Our hormones control everything. The 2 biggest drivers that I want to talk about is estrogen and progesterone. Those are the 2 hormones that drive our cycle. Estrogen is the hormone, if you want to think about it in like kind of like a Beyonce of our hormones. It's the one like, the single ladies. It's like, it's ready to get you going. It still has a lot of energy. And once we think about progesterone, which is the hormone in the second half of the cycle, I don't know if Twilight movie was popular in France.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So you know the actress Kristen Stewart, she's
Yes.
very like Beyonce and Kristen Stewart are very different energies. Kristen Stewart is very like, okay, I'll just like very, very like, that's progesterone. So these are two hormones, two very different energies, do two very different things, and we need them both. And those are the hormones that drive our mood, our energy, but primarily those are the hormones that drive our menstrual cycle, which is a menstrual cycle for women. When we think about the health markers, when we go to the doctor, they would measure our pulse, our blood pressure, and menstrual cycle, the top four. The menstrual cycle for women is our fifth health marker sign. So if our menstrual cycle is regular, it comes every single month. For some women with more comfort, less comfort, we'll talk about what's normal, what's not. That is considered to be a healthy body. If you're starting to experience, and I think women have this advantage, when we start to experience late cycles, disappearing periods, extremely painful periods, maybe certain other issues that come with it, maybe we bleed at very random times. That is the advantage that we have as women, to be like, okay, this is what's happening with our body. This is, now I have to pay attention to it. And because we have it every single month, as for women, we're able to watch our health every month. And if there is something off, just like if there's something was off with your heart rate, I always encourage women to really pay attention to it. And if something is serious, always seek medical advice, because period for women is so much more important than it is one of the most important thing for women, the health of our menstrual cycle.
This is so fascinating, and I thank you for coming and explaining this. I'm very happy. I already listened to your TED Talk, as I told you, but this is very important to me because, as you said, women should pay attention to their cycle and understand their body, and this can help us probably do better in our day-to-day life. So what kind of food can help the body during the cycle?
So when it comes to, when we think about different phase, kind of like, I guess the reason that I love the seasonal description so much is because the seasons can be such a good guide. So let me ask you, like in the winter, what sort of foods do you typically tend to crave?
I crave more during my luteal phase than during my menstrual phase. And so my menstrual phase, I go back to normal and salty food.
But if you like, we're thinking in the winter, like it's cold day, January.
Hot food.
So typically when it comes to our menstrual phase, the things that we should be focusing on is warming foods, just like you said. And Chinese medicine actually draws a lot of parallels between how the cycles work, because our body needs to feel warmer during our menstruation and sort of the end of the luteal phase. We also have the way that hormones affect us. They actually also impact our immunity system. So typically for women, if you watch it, you're more likely to get sick at just before your period or on your period. This is the time where our immune system, because of the way that the hormones fluctuate, our immune system down regulates, and typically this is when we're able to get sick so much more often. So this is the time naturally when our body just craves warmer foods, soups, stuff that have energy. Another thing, because it's our period, it's our menstrual phase, because we lose blood, we lose a lot of iron, and we need to be proactive about replenishing that iron. So good sources of iron foods include meats, of course. If you don't eat meats, things like lentils, tofu, spinach, variety of things, but really focusing on the iron-rich foods. As we enter into spring, typically in our daily life, when spring comes, we have new veggies, new fruits, stuff that's a little bit more leafy green vegetables. So during that time, as far as your appetite, estrogen is the hormone that's rises during our inner spring / follicular phase. So estrogen is actually the hormone that suppresses our appetite. We're not very hungry. So things that you'd want to have is lighter proteins. Proteins should always be the focus. So things like chicken, eggs, tofu, and then veggies. This is the time when you'd want to have a lot of leafy greens, things like kale, salads, spinach, and a lot of fiber stuff. So fiber stuff is when we think about basically vegetables. The reason that fiber is so important is because when estrogen goes up in our body, estrogen also has to come out from our body. And the way that estrogen comes from our body is actually it binds, it it grabs to food, and it grabs to foods that's stringy. So the stringy foods, like when we think of celery, like the specific fiber rich foods that I'm talking about, it'll catch to it and it'll exit the body. It'll also support your gut, but it'll be more lighter foods. So chicken, eggs, vegetables, carrots, peppers, stuff that's very, very colorful. As we enter into our inner summer, which is our ovulation, during that time, typically because of how much estrogen peaks, we typically tend to be the least hungry. We just don't really want to eat. And this is when most women make a mistake of just cutting out on their foods. And they're like, you know what, not hungry, gonna skip breakfast, might be eating little lunch. At which point we might crave more carby stuff in dinner, or we just skip meals altogether, which the impact of it is not very good on the female body, so I wouldn't recommend it. But typically the appetite slows down, but actually this is the time to support your gut, to support your appetite with more vegetables, things like cabbage. Red cabbage is very good during this time. Fish, stuff that's lighter protein but still very colorful, sort of a rainbow on your plate kind of thing. Then we enter into our luteal phase. So once we ovulated, this is the time when we starting producing more progesterone. And you mentioned that you have more cravings, and it's because progesterone actually speeds up our metabolism, oftentimes by quite a significant, almost by 20%. And because it speeds up our metabolism, but since we already got used to last week, we were ovulating, we weren't very hungry, we're like, I felt great. In women's bodies and the way that we've been socialized, we're like, I'll just do the same thing next week. But next week, you hormonally build differently. That's when you start going for things like chocolate, chips, cookies, and all the things, because now you need energy and your body will go for energy. So to prevent that, the things that you should be eating during this time is more heavier foods. So things like stews, lentils, like curries, stuff that really is warming. Kind of if you're thinking of changing seasons from September, October into November, you're starting to cook more soups, more richer foods. That's the sort of foods that you should be eating, and also more cooked foods. Your body will do much better eating fresh foods during your follicular and ovulatory phase. During luteal and menstrual, during your fall and winter, the foods has to get more cooked. It'll be easier for the gut to digest it. There is a very specific reason for that. And so more warmer foods. And then we get back into our winter, so more meat, beef bourguignon, things like that. Those are the things that will, so we cycle it, which makes it, I mean, we live in France, we love the variety of food, and we actually do have an ability to enjoy so many different things. So like actually it allows for foods to continue changing. Like I'm one of those people, I actually can eat the same breakfast, lunch, and dinner forever, and I won't get tired of it. My partner is French, and he would not eat the same thing. And I actually think dating him and actually making my diet more variety, I was able to see so much more difference in my energy, because I actually started to eat right for my cycle, and now he has to eat with my menstrual cycle. But it's actually great. We love it because it gives us so much variety.
It's very easy to understand when you explain it with the seasons.
Yeah, it's so much easier, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, once you understand the season, you understand the woman body. It's amazing. I love it. I love it. It's amazing also because I do agree with you, and also I can see it in myself when I eat sugary in the morning. First of all, I get super hungry just after a
couple hours.
Not even 1 hour, I'm already hungry. And then I can feel that the energy is totally different. So I totally agree with you.
Makes such a difference.
It's scientific.
It makes such a difference. Yeah.
But so let's go back to the first question.
Yeah.
How do you have to train during your different phases?
Training is so important when it comes to your cycle. I will start with the fact that we're also individual. I think when cycle syncing, understanding your menstrual cycle finally hit the mainstream. I started to do this work about 5-6 years ago when it wasn't very cool, and I started to do it because I actually used to struggle with periods that were so painful. I ended up in the hospital a couple of times and I thought there was some underlying issue, and I just keep being told, no, it's okay, go on birth control, it's fine. So it actually it only took me, it was by accident that I came across the cycle, and I started to learn it and adapt my workouts, my exercises with the cycle. But the more this stuff started to become more popular, which I'm so grateful for, because I think the more we talk about this stuff, the better. Really, we're really helping out half the population of the world. But the more I started to see things that are very dogmatic in nature, so you can only do this during this phase, you can only do that, and it really limited us. Like, if you want to work out, if you've got the energy to lift weights during your period, fab, like, go for it. However, I do menstrual cycle and the stuff that I talk about, it should be more used as a guidance, not a rule, because it's not really a rule, because we all have such an individual bodies. And I know myself that like, when I started to listen to it, like, there would be moments when I have energy and I'll be like, but somebody told me I shouldn't be doing this, so I wouldn't do it. Like, it just doesn't work this way. So listening to your bodies really comes down to number one. But I will say number two, because I've run few half marathons, and when I have done them by listening to my cycle, and when I've done them without listening to my cycle, the results were completely different. The first half marathon I finished and I passed out throwing up and, like, basically had to be recovered. The second I finished with the personal best, and it was just amazing. And really the difference was I just listened to my cycle a little bit more, which brings us to training for the cycle. So we'll start with menstrual cycle, which is our winter. Interestingly enough, our hormones during our period are actually some of the lowest, because what triggers the hormones to go all the way down is the period. As soon as the period starts, basically all of our hormones go down, uterine lining sheds, and we start from ground zero. So funny enough, during our period, we actually hormonally the most like men, which is not something that we use because period is such a female thing, but actually hormonally speaking, we're just at a very low base level. So some women during periods, for them, exercising will be the worst idea in the planet. For some women, they'll start to feel the energy come up and they'll want to exercise. So, which really comes down to listening to your body. But technically, what I would advise and what I've noticed in myself and the clients that I work with is lighter movements, things like walking. I wouldn't go too hard on runs, especially if you don't have the energy, given that your body is going through the process. So more yin yoga, walking, just getting your body that movement, a little bit of lighter sort of exercise yoga. If you can handle vinyasa kind of stuff, you can go for it, but I take it down a notch. So stuff like that would feel really nice. Rolling on like rolls, that would feel really good. As you enter follicular phase, your inner spring, your estrogen starts to go up, your energy starts to go up. Estrogen, we also have another hormone, testosterone, that goes up, which is typically associated with men, but actually women very much make it. During this time, estrogen does an interesting thing to our brain. When estrogen hits our brain, interacts with it, we actually get more open to experiences. So I don't know, typically every single diet, routine, trip I've ever booked was on follicular phase, because I'm like, now I want to see the world, I want to start this book, I want to learn these things. So actually estrogen is very good for doing stuff that gives you a lot of energy and intensity. So it's good stuff to do things like running, hiking, very good time to do group workouts, because you want to be with people, you just want to learn and grasp the world. It's good to start lifting heavier weights just to see how your body feels. I wouldn't go too heavy, just sort of we incrementally go up, but just see how much your body goes, because your energy will allow you to do a lot of things. So very good stuff to do stuff like cardio. So HIIT workouts would be good during this time. Cycling, this kind of stuff would be fantastic. As we enter into our ovulatory phase, which is our inner summer, we have our testosterone levels peak, our estrogen levels peak. Testosterone really supports muscle building. So for those women that are looking for that muscle definition, this is when you really want to pump your weights and you go heavy, you go hard. Obviously, make sure you watch your form and all the things given. That's necessity, but you have a lot of energy. So this is the time where you go for it. This is the time where you'll actually notice the muscle definition builds the most in women. And then we enter our luteal phase, which you'll not naturally notice the energy drops, the appetite goes up, but also another thing that progesterone does is actually increases our body temperature. You can measure your body temperature in different phases of the cycle, so you're hotter. You just, anywhere you go, you just warmer, you want to take things off. So actually doing really hard HIIT workouts it'll just be uncomfortable. So actually the good time during this particular phase, things like Lagri, Pilates, things that use your body weight, like vinyasa workouts, maybe hatha yoga, things that are using things that involve things that involve the body, but maybe at a bit of a slower intensity, maybe lowering the weights a little bit more, and just see how your body feels. And at first it's kind of fun to start this and kind of see how your body feels. You'll notice that the energy will be more, availability for all those things will be more. But again, the base level is so important. If you're somebody that already is very active, some of these guidelines might be, you might push on them a little bit. But again, listening to your body and watching how your period comes, whether it's regular, without pain or not. But I think these are kind of general, if I had to describe it in general, that would be that.
Another question is, what are a few things that women can do to feel better during their different phases?
We talk about lifestyle. So during our period, the best thing you could, depending on sort of how your period feels, because I have followed, so my periods, as I mentioned, used to be extremely painful, have put me in the hospital. Ever since I was following the cycle when it came to food and lifestyle, I have virtually no pain, and it's been like this now for 5-6 years. And it was always like magic. It almost happened within 2-3 cycles. I completely went through not being able to move, taking Doliprane after Doliprane, to completely not having any pain. And really the biggest thing is because having these lifestyles and foods that supported the inflammation in the body and just lowering that, because that's where pain comes from, that has really helped. So some of the things during your menstrual cycle, the big thing that helps in general is stuff that are a bit slower. So things like walking, moving your body, allowing yourself rest, like actually giving yourself rest. I used to do this thing on Instagram where I used to celebrate my period with a period retreat, and I would just go off for 2 days and give yourself time of enjoying a TV show, laying on the couch. It's not, we have this culture of productivity, go, which is why it's that much more important for women to really take that time. So during menstrual cycle, just really giving yourself those couple of days. During follicular phase, as you sort of coming out of the period, one of the best things, your brain, as I mentioned, it's primed for learning. It's primed for getting excited and for grasping things. You literally become a sponge when it comes to knowledge. So it's really good to just, maybe this is the time where you try something new. Every single time during follicular phase, you do something that scares you. You go to a place that you haven't been to, because you'll be so much more primed to be able to doing that. Of course, while you're eating all of your veggies and doing all those things, that's super positive. During ovulation, this is the time when we're super outgoing. This is the time when, as women, especially if you're single or maybe you're in a partnership, this is the time where you plan sexy dates, because you feel yourself the most and you just feel incredible. Interestingly enough, during this time, we, as I mentioned a few times, our estrogen levels are very high, because this is sort of where they peak. And during this time, we usually want to have a drink or two, like have wine, because we're so outgoing. But actually during this time, if you can not go crazy on alcohol, though you're so outgoing, the alcohol, what it does, it actually creates more estrogen in our body. And when we create more estrogen, we start to have more cramps, we have to start to have more PMS symptoms. It actually creates cascade effect down the road. So it's kind of funny how the nature created that during the time that you feel the most outgoing, you actually should be watching those things. But this is the time where we're more prone to maybe going out a bit too much, getting too excited. Another thing that we're prone during our follicular and during our ovulatory phase, because we're so excited about things, we want to say yes to everything. I don't know if you ever plan your calendar during ovulatory phase. I'm sure every woman has, and you're just so excited, yes, and then the plans arrive, but it's your luteal phase, and you're like, the last thing I want to do is to go anywhere.
Yes, that is so right. It's crazy. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna wake up at 6 a.m. I'm gonna do this and that. Don't worry, I'm gonna do it. And then the day arrives, and you're like, why? Why did I do that?
Cancel a movie, a date. It's too much. So don't think about your future self. Think about what's gonna happen in the week, because these cycles, they sort of fall in as far as the timeline. The menstrual cycle, typically menstrual phase lasts anywhere between 3 to 5 days. Follicular phase lasts anywhere between 7 to 14 days. So 7 a week or two. Ovulatory phase, which is our ovulation, is about 3 to 5 days. We ovulate for fairly short time, and then our luteal phase goes for about 14 days. Should be on average anywhere between 12 to 14 days. So during the follicular through ovulatory phase, that's sort of half of the cycle. That's the half of the month where we can record podcasts, you can get super excited about going out, you can schedule your things, and then the other 2 weeks just slightly looking ahead and being like, okay, this is not gonna happen, I'm gonna sleep in a bit later, the meeting is gonna be later, like thinking about that in the future. Once I started to really implement that and then look at my calendar, I was like, wow, this is exactly, it's being at the right place at the right time. And actually our body should work, if we're healthy and hormones are balanced, it should work like a clock, and it's very easy to predict. So really optimizing your life in the way that meets your schedule as much as possible. I know people have jobs 9 to 5, so it's not maybe realistic for everyone, but you can make those, maybe your evening drinks or catching up with friends are better done during the 2 weeks when you feel the best, rather than the 2 weeks you know ahead of time is not going to feel good. So really planning ahead of time with kind of some of the things that I mentioned is probably the best advice that I could give.
And today we have the applications on our smartphones.
Yeah.
Do you recommend them?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the, I think technology has really benefited when it comes to tracking your cycle. When I started to track my cycle, I actually did it pen on paper, and I did it because I was so curious and I really wanted to understand more of this work. So I would write every day. If you struggling with your cycle, if your moods really dip or you're experiencing serious differences, I would just note maybe 1 or 2 words with every day of your cycle, maybe before you go to bed, just so you can reflect on the day, because you'll see the patterns. Especially if you have a lot of suffering with the cycle, it's really good to do it on pen and paper, because you'll know exactly what happens with your body. But for women who may be a bit more literate or even just starting to track cycles, there's a number of applications that people can use. The one that I like in particular is called Clue, CLUE. The reason that I like it is because it's actually a UK-based company. I used to live in London, so I sort of learned a little bit more about the company and spoke to the founder. But they actually use the data that we input, and they use it into women's health. They put it into women's health research. Some companies, some other popular apps, they take that company and then they sell the data for whatever reasons, but Clue actually uses it for women's health research, and it works just perfectly, and it does prediction on the cycle. So yeah, I definitely would recommend that as a point to sort of regularly follow your cycle. And also when you look at the app, and anytime I plan anything, I'd always open my menstrual cycle app and I always see where it is falls, and then I either go ahead or I don't go ahead with activities that I got scheduled.
Before you talked about like you said something that made me think about food as medicine. Is that medicine. Correct?
Absolutely. Food is medicine. And I know that phrase has been used quite a bit out there, but it truly is. Like, if we eat well, we feel well. And it's just the way that it works. Of course, we don't replace medicine that is maybe life-threatening for people, but food can absolutely be used as medicine. And I am a great example of that.
Like, for example, for your moods, for your if it hurts or if you're not feeling well, you can use different kind of foods that can help you with hormones.
Yeah.
Is that
I think in general, like, one of the biggest drivers of hormonal disruption in women is inflammation, is under eating, as from what I see, because women decide that they want to get skinnier. The first thing they do is typically stop eating, which is a terrible thing to do, but this is kind of how society has been taught us. So inflammation, under eating creates a lot of stress in our body that creates inflammation in itself, and blood sugar dysregulation, which essentially is inflammation.
Another question that, if we go back to hormones, is why is testosterone important for women?
I think when we talk about testosterone, we think of big hunky men, Hulk, muscles. And the truth is, women produce testosterone just as men do, but produce it in smaller amounts because men have testicles, women don't have testicles. But our testosterone comes from ovaries, and our testosterone comes from adrenal glands. So there's 2 organs in our body that produce it, and with testosterone for women, if our testosterone levels are low, some of the things that women will start noticing, it's very difficult to put the muscle on. So no matter how much you work out, you just don't see any muscle definition.
I'm gonna just stop you there because this is so important, because every time I train or every time I hear a woman that wants to train and they're like, I don't want to get bulk.
It's so hard to get bulky.
It's years that I train and I don't get the muscle that I want.
We don't have the same level of, we just get, like, it's very, very hard.
Exactly. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Please
this
go on.
exactly it. And it's so funny you say that, because when I tell women to start lifting weights, which is the most amazing thing for longevity, that's what they hear. Yeah, it's just, we have this associations that it's so difficult to put weight, to put like big muscle weight as a woman. You have to have very legitimate training. You have to eat very like, it's just impossible, because we just don't produce the same amount. We don't have testicles. It comes from other places. So but usually when you have low testosterone, it gets very difficult to put on muscles, like you just can't. But typically your energy would go down, your libido will go down, like there's just absolute no interest in sex. That is a good sign of low testosterone, and the energy will go down. You'll just feel much lower. And typically a testosterone in our body peaks at around during our spring summer, during our follicular ovulation phase. Testosterone also helps us mentally. It makes us more assertive. We're able to make, sometimes you're like, I'm not sure if I, like during luteal phase, sort of before period, this is when I start to doubt everything in my life. I want to leave countries, I want to quit relationships, like I'm just, I don't know, I just don't know if I want to like jump out of the, like, you're just not interested. But during follicular and ovulatory phase, this is when I'm very confident at making decisions. And actually it's testosterone is the driving force behind it. We're more assertive, we're more confident, which is why it's so good to, during follicular and ovulatory phases, to go on dates, to have performance interviews at jobs. I always recommend women do that if they work in the environment where that happens, where you're able to speak up for yourself, where you're confident, because testosterone really contributes to that. When testosterone is low, we start to feel just in general lower, and just kind of like the energy goes down. We start to be less assertive, and it's not even personality quirk, because obviously we're all different, but you just get a little bit more shaky ground. That's sort of low testosterone. But testosterone really plays in harmony with our sex hormones, so progesterone, estrogen, and it's not about having more testosterone, it's really having it in good balance. And you'll have it, best way to watch it is by symptoms. If you're starting to feel way too weak, hard to put muscles, low libido, you just kind of shrink yourself, that usually means testosterone levels are lower. And you can measure those levels with the doctors. You can watch it by symptoms, but the best way to increase testosterone is actually by lifting weights. The best natural ways, you just start to lift weights, and it'll naturally start producing testosterone. They're very good for energy, for muscle recovery, for growth of the muscle, for regeneration. There's just so many good things that come from having right balanced levels of hormones.
Can you please make the difference between, I'm gonna write check it out because I don't want to misspell it, which is premenstrual syndrome and premenstrual dysphoric disorder. What's the difference?
So PMS is the word that we hear so much. Funny enough, 85% of women will suffer from PMS at one point in their life or another. And PMS is typically a collection called premenstrual syndrome, and it really is a blanket term for things like mood swings before your period. You just like go up and down. Sleep affecting, bloating. 73% of women will experience digestive issues before their period. It's a very, very common thing. That's why women sometimes, even on Instagram, put their bloated bellies before period. It's actually because of hormonal imbalance. And with the right nutrition that I talked about, you can actually resolve it. So premenstrual syndrome is a collection of syndromes, and it's essentially discomfort. It affects your life, but it doesn't really, you almost sort of like, you heard about PMS, you kind of, it makes your life manageable. You deal with certain bloating, certain discomfort. Some women get headaches just before their period. I think there's over 100 symptoms that can go under the blanket of PMS. It's very, very, it's common. It's not normal. The fact that it is so common doesn't make it normal, nor does painful periods, but PMS happens and it's manageable. PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, is a completely different condition. So PMDD, you actually if in PMS it's because of hormonal imbalances you experiencing issues, with PMDD is actually you less so much experiencing hormonal imbalances, but it's that how this hormones interact with your brain and nervous system. So your hormones start to, there's an reaction that happens between rising estrogen, rising progesterone in the way that they hit your brain chemicals, essentially in making it a simple term. So for some women, PMDD usually can come after ovulation. During this luteal phase, they go into the horror, and it basically you start to have extremely low moods, depressed, unable to get out of bed. Many women have suicidal ideations. Women actually do, in fact, terribly commit suicide when they're on PMDD because they just don't understand what's happening, and it is a serious condition. So if you start to feel super low, like beyond your normal self, and it's just such a stark difference, I would seek advice from a medical professional. They do sometimes use SSRIs, which is antidepressant during that time. Though I can say that PMS, I can guarantee it will help with nutrition and lifestyle support. PMDD also can, and I worked with women who, by adding some herbs, by doing things naturally, you certainly could. But PMDD is the condition your brain just, these fluctuations in the hormones, sort of their disfluctuation is what would create PMS symptom. But this fluctuation, them hitting the brain and the nervous system, which is why it affects your mood, it affects your mental state, and it's just the hormones interactions with the brain neurochemicals. That's basically the difference in between them two, which is why sometimes we try to modulate the neurochemicals with antidepressants to sort of help it. And to some women it helps, to some women less so. But there are different herbs and different things that you can take to sort of to modulate that, to reduce it. But actually the first step is awareness. When you all of a sudden, out of nowhere, want to come out, and I had this woman's example. She said that I just want to come out of my house and into the jumping traffic. Like if you experience that, and I heard that story repetitively. If you experience those urges, like that is a sign it's PMDD. But if you're awareness that first of all, it's not forever. It's as soon as period comes, the hormones drop. They don't have the same effect on the brain. You usually immediately feels better. That's a really good sign. Knowing that it's not forever, knowing that there is support, knowing that there's things that you can do already can relieve so much symptoms. And it's definitely one of those things that you should seek answers for if the mood drops, because there are ways that you can support it. But yeah, the difference is essentially the way that it interrupts with our neurotransmitters and just the way that the hormones hit our brain.
To resume this, PMS and PMDD, they're just a different way of feelings.
PMS you can function, PMDD you cannot function.
Okay. And this happens during your luteal phase, so before your menstrual cycle.
Correct.
And so the PMS, it's actually, let's say it's common.
Yeah,
it's common, but you can probably adjust it with some food or some natural things. But with the PMDD, and if it's too strong, you might need to seek advice from a doctor.
Definitely, because if it starts to affect your daily life, if it starts to affect your daily function, which PMDD does, PMDD makes life, unfortunately, it makes life quite unmanageable, because the moods and just how anxious you get, how it just becomes, it makes things really unmanageable, and you do want to hide from some things. And I have some friends in Nice here locally that do experience it, and the experiences that they share changes. They did tell me that by making certain life changes, it does get better. One of those things is really managing the inflammation in the body, managing sugar intake. That can take things a little bit better. Depending on the women, it can last for 2-3 days. For some women, it goes for all 2 weeks. And that is definitely, if it gets really disruptive with your life, because PMDD does make things much harder to function, that's definitely when we should seek the medical advice. And just to see if there's, because that's why though medicine sometimes can really push medicine a bit too hard in certain ways, there's some times when we really need it. One
important thing that I would like to say right now is that if in case you are experiencing any trouble, please go and seek medical advice. That will be very helpful for yourself, or if you know somebody that is in need, please tell them to go and check a doctor. So thank you so much, Dinara. It was amazing. For me, it was exciting. I learned so much.
Good.
I hope to see you again. I hope we can work these together and check if we have new arguments to bring in, because
Yeah.
I think this is amazing for me and for everybody, women and men, because this is not just for women to know.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much. If you want to give your contacts so that people can follow you, please, this is the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you can, Instagram is basically the place where I live the most, which is dinara.mukh. You welcome to follow. We'll probably link it in the show notes, just to sort of, if you have any questions, please do reach out. And then if you are in Nice area and within this area, you also will find that I'm doing more community events, so you're able to join those, and then we can continue having these conversations in real life.
Thank you so much, Dinara.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I can't wait to have you again. And probably I will join your sessions. And
Amazing.
I will love that.
Perfect.
Thank you. J'espère que l'épisode ça vous a plu. N'hésitez pas à vous abonner à la chaîne YouTube. N'hésitez pas à nous suivre sur Instagram et sur TikTok, et aussi à mettre des likes, share, please, s'il vous plaît. Ça nous aidera beaucoup. Et surtout, on a une nouvelle chaîne que ça s'appelle Patreon. N'hésitez pas à vous abonner sur Patreon pour avoir l'épisode complet. Merci et au revoir.